What if the biggest army in Europe is quietly falling apart from the inside, while its own leader still believes he is winning? Something is breaking inside Russia right now, and it is worse than anything the Soviet Union ever went through. Before we go further, hit that like button, tap subscribe, and send this video to one person who still thinks this war is going Russia's way. Trust me, by the end of this video, you will want to talk about it with someone. Let's go back to the beginning, because you need to understand where this all started to understand how bad it has become. When this war began, Russia's leadership was confident. Not just confident, arrogant. Military planners expected the capital of Ukraine to fall within days. Soldiers packed light gear because nobody thought they would be fighting for years. Commanders told their troops they would be welcomed as liberators. There were even reports of parade uniforms being packed, ready for a victory march through the streets of Kiev. None of that happened. Instead, Russia is now years into a war it thought would be over in a weekend. And the cost of staying in that war is climbing every single month. Soldiers keep dying. Equipment keeps burning. Money keeps disappearing into a war machine that cannot deliver the win it promised. And yet, the map barely moves. This is the strange part that most people don't realize. Despite everything, despite the massive size of the Russian military, despite the manpower, despite the weapons, the front line has barely shifted in the most fought-over regions. Ukraine, a country with far fewer soldiers and far fewer resources, is holding the line and, in some places, pushing Russian forces back. So, how does a smaller army slow down one of the largest militaries on the planet? The answer lies in technology, desperation, and a level of internal dysfunction that Russia's own government is trying very hard to hide from its people. Let's talk about the numbers first, because they tell a story that words alone cannot. Earlier this year, Russia launched a major offensive aimed at capturing the remaining territory in the eastern Donbas region. This was supposed to be the turning point. Military planners reportedly gathered an enormous force, with some estimates placing the number of Russian troops involved at more than 700,000. That is a staggering number. That is more soldiers than most countries have in their entire military. And yet, according to independent monitoring groups tracking the front line, the territorial gains from this massive offensive were almost nothing compared to previous years. In the months this offensive was supposed to be at its strongest, Russian forces reportedly advanced only a tiny fraction of the distance they gained during the same period the year before. In some sections of the front, they didn't just fail to advance, they actually lost ground. Think about that for a second. A military of hundreds of thousands of soldiers, backed by one of the largest defense budgets in the world, advancing at a crawl. They are losing men and machines at a pace that has alarmed even neutral military analysts. Two cities in particular have become symbols of this stagnation. Names that Russian state media has promised are about to fall for years now, yet somehow remain contested or unconquered. Every few months, there are new declarations of imminent victory in these locations. And every few months, those declarations quietly disappear, replaced by new promises. Why is this happening? Why can't a force this size break through? Because Ukraine changed the entire nature of how this war is being fought. Instead of relying only on manpower and heavy armor the way wars were fought decades ago, Ukraine has built a defense system centered on drones. Their system uses precision strikes and real-time intelligence to maximize damage. Cheap, fast, and deadly flying machines have turned open fields into kill zones. Convoys that used to move safely behind the front lines are now vulnerable from kilometers away. Supply routes that once felt secure are now considered high risk. This has created a nightmare scenario for Russian commanders. Reinforcements struggle to reach the front, and ammunition and fuel convoys get picked off before they even reach the soldiers who need them. Units that should be supported and resupplied are instead left isolated, cut off, and forced to fight with dwindling resources. But here's the part that should truly disturb you. The real cost of this war is not measured in kilometers of land, it's measured in human lives. The scale of loss is almost impossible to comprehend. According to independent journalists, the number of Russian soldiers dying every month exceeds the total number of Soviet soldiers killed during the decade-long war in Afghanistan. Read that again. 1 month of casualties today is larger than an entire decade of losses from a war that scarred an entire generation. Over the full span of this conflict, total Russian losses are believed to have crossed well past 1 million, including both killed and wounded. And the pace has only gotten worse, with some trackers estimating the monthly death toll has nearly tripled compared to a year ago. Tens of thousands of soldiers are reportedly dying every single month. These numbers don't come from Ukraine's government. They come from independent media outlets and researchers. They cross-reference obituaries, funeral records, and regional reports to build a picture that the Kremlin refuses to release publicly. Even these investigators admit the real numbers are likely higher than what they can verify. There's another detail that makes this even darker. In a properly functioning military, a wounded soldier usually has a strong chance of survival due to medical evacuation systems. But on this front, drones have made evacuation incredibly dangerous for everyone involved. Vehicles trying to retrieve wounded soldiers become targets themselves almost instantly. As a result, for every soldier that is saved, multiple others are left behind or die from wounds that could have been treatable. This is not just a tragedy, it's a sign of a military system that has stretched far beyond its capacity. Here's the number that puts everything into perspective. Every single square kilometer of territory captured in Donbas has reportedly cost Russia several hundred soldiers. Hundreds of lives for a patch of land you could walk across in under an hour. So how is Moscow replacing these staggering losses? Not through a national draft. A full mobilization would be deeply unpopular and politically dangerous. The government depends on the public staying quiet and disengaged from the war. Instead, the Kremlin has turned to recruiting foreign fighters from more than 100 different countries. Reports suggest there are now tens of thousands of foreign nationals fighting for Russia, with the largest groups from Cuba and North Korea. Many are drawn in by the promise of money, sometimes more than they could ever earn at home. But there are also deeply disturbing reports of deception involving men being promised safe construction jobs or logistics work. They find themselves handed a rifle and sent straight to the front line with little to no training. Human rights organizations have documented cases of coercive and illegal recruitment tactics being used to pull these men into the war. The survival odds for these recruits are grim, with roughly 1 in 5 sent to the front never making it back. This is the human cost hiding behind the official narrative of strength and inevitability. Before we go deeper into how this collapse is spreading beyond the battlefield, take a second to like this video. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who need to see the real picture. Now let's talk about how Ukraine, with a much smaller force, is managing to inflict this level of damage. Instead of only fighting at the front line, Ukraine is targeting the systems that keep the Russian war machine alive. They strike fuel depots, supply convoys, railways, and logistics hubs far behind what was assumed to be the safe zone. New generations of drones have made this possible, using artificial intelligence to identify and strike targets. These systems have long range and high precision with very little need for human guidance once launched. Others are cheaper, lightweight, and ideal for hitting supply routes running through occupied territory. The impact isn't just about blowing up trucks and trains. It's about protecting soldiers by striking from a distance. In many cases, the time between spotting a target and destroying it is now measured in minutes, not hours. What makes this possible is a serious technological gap. Ukraine has built a rapid cycle of designing and replacing drones faster than Russian defenses can adapt. Russia has struggled to keep pace in producing interceptor systems and updating electronic jamming technology. Nowhere is this more visible than along the supply corridor connecting occupied southern territory to Crimea. Today, that route has become one of the most dangerous stretches of road in the entire war zone. Convoys and rail lines along this corridor are under constant threat, triggering a serious fuel crisis in the region. Reports describe gas stations running dry and power outages affecting civilians. This crisis has begun spreading to the point where mobile Russian air defense units are struggling to find enough fuel to operate. The infrastructure meant to defend against drones is now being crippled by the very drone campaign it's supposed to stop. Information reaching the very top of Russia's government appears to be dangerously disconnected from reality. Senior military leadership has repeatedly delivered inflated and inaccurate battlefield reports to the Kremlin. One eastern region was reportedly declared fully captured on separate occasions, each time turning out to be untrue. Claims about territory seized have been exaggerated by significant margins, according to independent monitoring groups. Even Russian military bloggers have publicly mocked some of these claims as unrealistic or fictional. Inside a system built on rigid hierarchy and fear of failure, bad news is dangerous to deliver. Reports flowing upward tend to get polished, softened, and shaped into something the leadership wants to hear. This pattern has resulted in casualty figures, for the opposing side, being wildly overstated, while Russia's own losses are hidden. If the man making final decisions believes the war is going well, there's little internal pressure to change course. The war continues because the truth isn't reaching the top. Meanwhile, long-range drones have reached industrial centers and even the skies above Moscow itself. This exposes just how stretched and outdated the air defense network has become. A second regulation extended responsibility to private companies to purchase advanced defense equipment using their own money. The company's role begins and ends with paying the bill for protecting oil refineries and infrastructure. This is not the behavior of a confident military power, but of a system running out of options. Pressure is doing the most damage inside the minds of the people who supported this war from day one. They can't turn fully against the war because that would mean admitting they were wrong from the very beginning. But they also can't fully trust their own government anymore because they see the gap between reports and reality. This quiet erosion of trust among loyal supporters may be the most dangerous long-term threat to the Kremlin's authority. Western sanctions have cut deep into Russia's economy. leaving the Kremlin with very few places left to turn. Many analysts now describe Russia's position as the smaller dependent partner in its relationship with China. Inside the country, a small group is benefiting enormously from multiplied defense spending and massive manufacturing contracts. Russia has not stopped fighting, and the economy has proven more resilient than many expected. Defense production facilities are reportedly running around the clock, continuously producing new equipment. The strategy is a slow, grinding approach designed to wear down both Ukraine's resistance and Western patience over time. But this year's pace of advance is roughly half of what it was the year before, with no real breakthroughs achieved. Growth is deeply tied to military spending and paired with high inflation, questioning long-term stability. This doesn't look like a system heading toward victory when casualties climb at a pace unseen in Soviet history. The real story is about how long a system built on silence can survive once the truth starts leaking out. Do you think this pressure eventually forces real change from within, or does the system find a way to hold together? Type your honest opinion in the comments below, hit subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to understand. We will keep tracking this story as it develops.